Before we jump into today's show, I've got a really exciting announcement to make. The autumn cohorts for Start Your Podcast group program are now open. There are 5 dates between September and October, and it's a 6-week program that will get you launched before Christmas. So if podcasting was on your to-do list this year, if you really want to get your podcast up and done by the end of 2023, then come and join me for one of those cohorts and let's make it happen. I have a free masterclass available for you called Understanding the Power of Podcasting. You can go over to donnaeade.com/masterclass, watch the masterclass and get access to that enrollment. I hope to see you in one of the autumn cohorts very soon. That's donnaeade.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the show. Welcome to the Wedding Procast, everybody. Today we have a fantastic guest, Lincoln Noel. He is a highly entertaining top drawer pianist with 42 years experience in the wedding game, with high-level roles on the concert stage as well as the West End Theatre, among many other impressive engagements. He brings great value to every wedding he's involved with, and he certainly has some experience to share with us today. So listen in and enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I've got something to cheer you all up. I have got a fantastic guest with me. Lincoln, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for that really warm welcome. It's great to be here.
I have been in hysterics with this man, and I'm sure he's going to bring the laughter for you guys. So we're just going to jump straight into it. Lincoln, tell us a little bit about who you are. Now, he's a musician, everybody. I'm surprised he's not tinkling his ivories right now, but he is a musician. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Lincoln. How did you get into the wedding industry, and how did you get started in music?
Wow, gosh, so many questions all in there. I started at the beginning. So I started playing piano when I was 3. I started having piano lessons when I was 4. I saw Yehudi Menuhin play live when I was 6 at the Corby Festival Hall, and had decided, he was playing, for those of you who don't know, Yehudi Menuhin, very famous violinist, Jewish violinist. He was very, very big in the 60s, and he started his own music school, the Yehudi Menuhin School in northwest London, for elite youngsters, a bit like Cheetham Music School, Wells Cathedral School. Cheetham is in Manchester, Wells I think is in the West Country. I saw him play with the BBC Symphony Orchestra. He had tails on, white bow tie, shiny shoes, came on with the grace and poise of a real star, took his bow, and I turned to my dad and said, yeah, that's what I want to do, wear nice clothes, play for nice people, play nice music. And I worked really, really hard. Now I went to a Baptist church in Northampton called College Street. We had a great organist. We had a choir. We did loads and loads of shows. We had a black and white minstrel show, which I know is politically incorrect, especially with a person like me, of my ethnicity. But what I learned in those first 12, 13 years of my life is a lot of music, as well as what I did with my piano teacher, who was brilliant. She was an organist. She taught me theory. She taught me music. So I had a really grounded education in music. And I started playing the piano at church because the organ was out of order. They needed pianists to lead the singing in church. So I learned how to play for Sunday services and ended up playing at King's Heath Baptist Church occasionally for Reverend Gilbert Dodd. And as I was waiting to get my racing bike when I was 13, he turned up at my house just before I got delivery of my racing bike with clutching some wedding music and said, "Can you play Here Comes the Bride and the Wedding March?" Put the music in front of me and I said, yep. He said, "Would you do a wedding for me?" I said, yep. I said, "When is it?" This was a Thursday evening. He said, "The wedding is Saturday." And I went, yep. And that's my first wedding, July 1979. And
Did you say you were 13 then?
I was 13. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's only as I'm writing a book about my journey through weddings, and obviously the book opens with me describing this very warm Sunday evening, waiting to get my Raleigh Europa, and the familiar figure of Reverend Dodd coming down the aisle. A very gaunt man who chain smoked. So the fact that he was coming down my drive in Duston, where I live in Northampton, with a cigarette going was not a new sight to me. But the thing is, he never ever turned up at my house. Whenever he needed me, he rang me. He said, Lincoln, can you help us out on Sunday? And I'd say yes. He'd send the hymns and I'd play them. Now, you say 13, but at that point, I'd been playing services. I'd been taught how to play hymns. I was highly experienced in playing for church services. So it was just another church service. But obviously, there was a bride and a groom. And I'd got in my head, I'd been to 2 weddings at that point. Three weddings at that point. My next door neighbours when I was 8 years old. My cousin when I was 11 years old, and my other cousin when I was 12. Sorry, in Seymour and Gurley's when I was 10 in Northampton. So those are my 4 practical examples, all of them very, very different, but all of the brides were beautiful, and all the gentlemen, David, Seymour, Junior, Herbert, Anton, very handsome men in nice suits. So I've got this thing in my head about the prince and the princess. So that's how I got started. I mean, that was the way things were. I played Here Comes the Bride. I played the Wedding March. I played Love Divine, All Love's Excelling, and The Lord's My Shepherd. They always seemed to be the same 2 hymns. It was always Corinthians 13. The brides and grooms at that time, it was all done through the parents. I never met the bride and groom in advance, and I never had any interaction with them until I think I was 17. And I did a wedding in a village outside Northampton. So this was a different sort of environment, really nice, well-behaved village. I still can't remember where it was, and I've done loads of research in my diaries while I've been preparing and writing the book. What I remember very definitely is that I went up to the bride and she thanked me for playing. Obviously, I was just about to approach music college, so my level of musicianship was high, always has been, and that was fine. And I thanked her. I told her she looked beautiful. I gave her a kiss. And I remember thinking, every time I do a wedding, I'm going to speak to the bride and groom. I'm going to make this a rule. I do not do a wedding without speaking to the bride and groom. And I gave the bride a kiss. And I told her she looked sensational. And she floated. I've always had interaction with my brides and grooms. It's never ever 2 names on a piece of paper. I turn up and say, who is it? Ted and Teresa. You know, I know who they are. I get to know, even if I'm just playing the church service, which is very rare, but it happens. But I get to know them as people so that I can reflect who they are in the music that I play.
Yeah. It just amazes me that you started so young. So you don't just tinkle on the ivories for weddings now. So your role in the wedding has grown. Can you tell us what it is that really sort of, obviously you started very young. Was there a conscious decision that, you know, weddings is where my career is going to be and this is what I want to do and this is how I want to expand my role? Or was it something that just sort of came naturally? Did you have aspirations of doing something else rather than weddings?
Working on the assumption that I was always going to do music, which was what, in my head, I was always going to be a pianist. I always wanted to play weddings. I always took weddings seriously. Yes, there was a combination of factors. At Sunday school, I had a friend who moved away. The year that I did my first wedding, that academic year, age 12 going 13, I had a Sunday school friend who moved away from the church. And she was a Kingsthorpe girl, and she moved to a village called Great Brington, where her parents still live. And we fleetingly had contact because there was a girl who I absolutely adored and fancied, Alex, and I met this young lady occasionally, and then we bumped into one another in London, and she sent a message to me via a friend, my Sunday school teacher, that she wanted me to play at her wedding, and her mum said, would you play at the reception? And that's the first time that I played at the reception. So I played at the church in Great Brington, and then a piano was hired, and I went to the Broomhill in Stratton. 2 things happened that day. Number one is the bride was 40 minutes late in church, so I just freestyled. And the stuff that I played was stuff that I never thought I would ever sit and play on a church organ or in church. I don't think I played Bohemian Rhapsody, but I kind of went anywhere and everywhere else. And the groom, Steve, remembers it clearly. And in the evening, her mum asked if I would play for a few hours. We didn't come to any agreement what a few hours was, but I got there at 5 and I came off the piano well after midnight. And I had a couple of books, but I just played whatever happened in the moment. People said, can you play this? And I played that. And now the reason why I haven't mentioned who the bride is, but I knew that this particular wedding was an absolute game changer. And the bride concerned is a very famous young lady called Jo Whiley. So that was in 1991. So that was exactly 12 years on from when I did, almost to the day that I did my first wedding. What I realised is I could play at receptions, and also I didn't actually need to take my music. I could just freestyle. 3 years later, by default, I met Carol Sargent, who had a golf club called West Park, which became Whittlebury Park, that people know as Whittlebury Hall. And she saw an article about me in a magazine, called me and said, would you help me out with a few weddings? And I went straight round her house that day to Whittlebury Village, which wasn't well known at the time, and we decided to see how it went. And I started playing for drinks receptions, and for Carol, she used to host the weddings in her entrance hall, and the wedding celebrations would then go on into a marquee. 2 years on from that, I was invited to do the first civil ceremony in Northamptonshire with Mr. Vickers, and I realised very quickly that I knew something that most people didn't, which was what happens in such a ceremony, what's allowed, the structure of things. And I said to Carol, why don't we get a license? And she got a license, and she said, Lincoln, you take care of that and I'll take care of the rest. And that is the agreement that we had, and it stays and stands now. Now, at the time, as we were talking literally a couple of days ago, there were very few places in Northamptonshire that you could get married at other than Whittlebury. My first ever wedding was at Lamport Hall, and I thought I'd be at Lamport Hall loads of times after that. And I've actually been back to Lamport Hall twice since 96 to do weddings. My wife's best friend got married there in 2010, and the other wedding was in 2000. So Whittlebury still is a market leader, really, until lockdown, because we had the setup, the grand piano, the red carpet, the capacity to house up to 350 people in a civil ceremony situation, which very few other places can do. And they booked Whittlebury for a civil ceremony, and Lincoln Noel was taking care of everything. And that was a very unique, still is nationwide. I haven't come across anywhere that was sort of operating that way. So Carol would say, look, go and see my man Lincoln. He'll sort out the ceremony, talk through the music, talk through the programming. And it became more of a thing in 1998 because we had a wedding where things were going drastically wrong. We all thought the wedding was at 2. It turned out to be 12:30. And that included the registrar. So I'm here at my home teaching a young lady called Samantha. Her mum sits in. Thankfully, Carol rings me up in tears and says, Lincoln, I need you here. And in 6 minutes, and this is before the A43 was created with the dual carriageway, as we know, going in and out of all the way to Oxford, or I should say the M40. It was a single track road. I sped over there and took over from Becky Illingworth, who was playing the entertainer. And we realised many things, that the string quartet that were booked for the drinks would now be playing the wedding breakfast. The opera singer that was booked for the 2 o'clock ceremony would be arriving late. And I just decided in my head that I was going to take control, and I stood up and addressed the people. And that day I became a Master of Ceremonies, and a gentleman at the wedding came up to me and said, do you have a card? And I said, yes, and gave him my regular card. And he told me that he didn't need my pianistic skills. He just needed my Toastmaster skills. And as it turned out, I did play the wedding. It took place at Stowe, and I played on the grand piano in the Great Hall at Stowe, and then was the MC. I was the Toastmaster. I sat near the top table, ate with the guests, and just made announcements and told people where to go, where to stop, where to stand, which pictures needed doing, and the careers have gone side by side. There are very few. I mean, there are weddings I do where I just play the piano, and there are weddings I do when I'm just the church organist. But more often than not, I become the man who jumps off the piano and does the good afternoon and welcome to Forsley Hall, Whitworth Hall,
wherever it is.
the Hilton Hotel, Park Lane. So it was just a case of doing what needed to be done. And because I've done it for such a long time, I've become kind of a go-to person and deemed to be an expert, so much so that someone said to me, you should really create an online wedding course, which is what I'm doing at the moment. It's only when I'm looking back at all of the sort of timeline of events, because I'm writing the book, that I realise that I didn't set out to be a comprehensive wedding performer, other than to say that the year before this particular wedding went wrong, I had been doing a show called Tap in Harlem. And up to that point, I had decided that that was where I was aiming to be. So I had two opportunities to play in the West End. One was on a show called Five Guys Named Mo, which did really well, but I didn't feel it was what I wanted to do. And then I did a show in the West End called Ain't Misbehaving, which was going to go on tour. And then that had a puncture. And I was determined to do a show from seed, and Tapping Harlem became that show. So I was approached in the Christmas 1996. We can say that we're recording this just before Christmas and just before my birthday. But in 1996, I got a call. I went to see Trevor Michael Georges, who is currently a member of the only black family in Coronation Street, and he was writing the music. He asked me to be the musical director, and we rehearsed at the Dance Attic with Eternal, the pop group Eternal, in the next studio. And the Dance Attic, was it Dance Attic? Yes, was owned and run by the guy who sang "I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt." So can you imagine? I can't think of his name. He's there cutting me a slice of Victoria sponge, making me a ham and salad sandwich, pouring me a cup of tea, giving me a sausage roll that he's warmed up in the microwave, and he's got a frilly apron on. And I'm thinking, this is surreal. This is surreal.
Definitely.
Mr. I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt. Anyway, after I did that show and took it on tour, which included Derngate, I realised that being a musical director or onstage performer in West End shows was not playing to my strengths, because I had to play the same music every night, each performance. If something happened in my eye line, like, an actor fell over, I'd stick a little something in. And then, of course, I'd be up in front of the management and get told off. And I did a few weddings after Tapping Harlem. I realised that was an area that played to my strengths, because I love people, and it had always been my dream as a child to play for everyone. My dad died on Christmas Eve '92, and we chatted through absolutely everything that I was doing. We went to football matches and rugby matches, and the only thing that I didn't do with my dad, which I regret, is take him to watch Michael Jackson live, because he was our hero. But I remember saying to my dad, I want to play for everybody. When you study at a place like the Royal Academy of Music, you realise having watched Yehudi Menuhin, you realise that there's only a certain type of person that's going to come and watch you playing in front of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra or the LSO or the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. Much as we'd like to imagine that music is accessible to all, it's not. I love classical music and I go to concerts, but it's a particular type of person that is there. And I grew up and still live amongst what I call normal Middle England foot soldiers. And I want those people to be able to pick the phone up to Lincoln Noel and say, my nan's 60th, will you play? And if I'm available, I say yes. I don't say, well, I don't play at St. Crispin's Social Club. I only play at De Vere Hotels. I will put my best clothes on and take my piano and play anywhere and everywhere for anyone who is prepared to call me and engage me. I don't have a class distinction. So in my 41 years, I've played for famous people, I have played for regarded people, I have played for powerful people, but I've also played for the girl next door and the boy next door. Because in front of me is a bride and a groom, or a groom and a groom and a bride and a bride. They are to have their, as I call it, the 24-hour Olympics Hollywood moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be honest, all of us, really, even the people who are powerful, live very predictable, drab lives. And we just need a day of magic. And if somebody makes a decision that they would like Lincoln to provide the magic, then I come. I don't say, well, I'm not going to play for you. If you've asked me, I seriously consider. And if the ducks are lined up and it's a fit, then I come with all the Lincoln machinery. And, of course, the personality. The personality comes for free.
Well, that's always good to know, because I could figure out that it'd be quite expensive to buy that kind of personality. It's just priceless. So what I would like to know next from you is, I've said before on the podcast last year that I can see that this situation that we find ourselves in at the moment is going to see an influx of people into the wedding industry. Although we've kind of had a dire year ourselves, so many people have been made redundant and are looking for alternative things to do with themselves when they are finding it hard to get a job. And they might have a camera that's sitting there getting dusty, or some cake tins that are sitting there getting dusty, and thinking, do you know what? I could do that, and setting themselves up. My fear is that they won't do it the right way, and that's going to cause issues for our bride and grooms going forward. Yeah. But I wondered if you had one piece of advice, like a signature piece of advice for somebody starting out in the industry, of, where they should start or what they should do to make sure that they are just, going to hit the ground running and, going to be doing the best for their couples whilst they're building a business for themselves.
Wow. I gave a talk last week about weddings to couples, and one of the biggest points I made is, when you're hiring people, don't hire talent, hire the person who understands the format. So if you're hiring a musician, don't hire a musician because he's good, because he might create problems for you on the day. Nobody's turning up to watch you play the piano. And that's a very, very, as big a personality as I am, I understand the format. I understand what my role is on the day. And I intersperse my personality in appropriate moments.
Yes.
It could be 30 seconds on a given day, or it could be 1 hour on a given day. It's being aware that the most important people are the bride and groom. So if you are going into the wedding industry, you should never forget that the two people that are in front of you are the most important people. They are not experts. I sometimes refer to difficult couples as 24-hour experts. They're not experts. I know that they're going to have a food tasting, and they're going to go on YouTube and listen to all 632 things that have been posted about me, from playing Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue and My Old Man Said Follow the Van, and my jazz trio playing Summertime, and go, yes, I think he's, you've got to understand the format. So if you're working in weddings, understand the dynamics of what weddings are about. You're not, if you're a cake maker, you're not making a cake. You're making a cake for a wedding. And to understand how that sits, it never ceases to amaze me when I talk to people who don't get employed as often as they think they should, and they just think about what they do. They never think about the big picture. Every wedding I do, I know what's going on for the rest of the day. So I get a sense of understanding of how I'm fitting in to the collage of their day. I don't define the collage. They define the collage. It's their call. They are human beings with a particular disposition, and they cannot be judged for their disposition, because weddings are a human experience. We're not selling a product. We're not promoting a product. We're talking about two people, and we're celebrating those people not for their achievements, but for what they are and who they are. It's as simple as that. So I say to brides and grooms, you have nothing to prove on that day. You wear the clothes you want to wear, and you look the way you want to look. And it's not for us to judge you. So if you're a supplier wanting to get into that game, you've got to, that sounds really, really deep, but understand what the business and how the dynamics, the setup of a day works, and then be bloody good at what you do. Work hard at what you do, because the whole point of being hired is that you're better than Auntie Mary or Uncle Sid. Because everybody preparing weddings, putting a wedding together, is like putting the England football team together to try and win the World Cup. Everybody's got a view about what you should, when England come to play the World Cup, everybody, even the woman that wraps the sandwiches at the back of the corner shop, knows what they should play 3-5-2 or 4-4. Everyone's got a view. That doesn't mean to say they're right, and you've got to present a picture of excellence. And it doesn't matter. We talked about different levels of the market, the elite end, the everyday end, and shall we say, for the sake of the argument, the bargain basement end. You've got to have something that marks you out, because this is the one-day Olympics. So it doesn't matter what you cost. You've got to have a USP which is tangible and recognizable, even if it's the fact that you wear a trilby at wedding fairs. People buy with their eyes and they buy with their emotions. So whatever you're doing, you've got to provide something that gets them excited, because that's what they're buying. They're buying excitement. Yes, if you're making a cake, they've got to have a cake that tastes nice. You've got to give a vehicle, especially for the girls. And I dare say there's a few boys that fall into this category. Let those people dream and go on their journey with them. If you're not prepared to go on that exciting journey with them, then just go and do something else. Yeah. You haven't failed. It's just that weddings are an indefinable area to work in. A little bit like entertainment, but people turn up to watch me play the piano. When they watch me play in a wedding, they're not turning up to watch me. I'm part, as I said, of the collage of the day. So suppliers, understand the format and learn your art, and be fastidious about learning your art. If you are in weddings, know what you're doing, learn it, consume it, be it, so that when Mr. and Mrs. X come to look at you, they can see that you've got something special. Because the day, no matter what the budget is, whether it's £1,000 or 10 million, that when they bring you, they're bringing in a special player, because you're coming in as part of a team or a squad.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was mic dropping. That was so good, because that is exactly how I feel. And one of the reasons I set up the Society of Professional Wedding Vendors, because there is a distinct difference between a bakery that bakes all the pastries and does birthday cakes and has got cakes in the pastry cases that you can buy on a day, and then a wedding cake maker. Now, a bakery may well provide wedding cakes as well, but you have got to understand the difference between somebody buying a birthday cake for a 5-year-old and somebody wanting a wedding cake for the most important day of their lives. It's a different beast. And that is why I set up the society, because everybody has got their trade associations, that are helping them with the trade side of things. But with the wedding industry, like you say, it's this whole collage of just knowing what the couple are going through, how excited they are about it, how important all of us little elements, the photographer, the musician, the cake maker, we make this feeling of their day. And if you don't understand that from the off, then you really shouldn't be in the industry, because it's just too important a day for them for you to mess it up. So that was brilliant. So just to end on, I thought we would go back to the advice that you've been given. So you've given some advice there. What was the best piece of business advice you were ever given?
In relation to weddings, it's not that I've been given advice. I have always observed what the very, very best people do for their customers. And that is that today is everything. I remember somebody saying to me, I had a bit of a wobble, or I wasn't keen on playing a particular wedding for somebody. And my dad said to me, no, Lincoln, put your suit on and put that $1 million smile on your face and go and make their day, and then we'll deal with everything else tomorrow. But for those people, oh, that's right. Somebody else said to me that when 12 o'clock comes, it's like Cinderella. The dream is over, which is why I developed the phrase 24-hour Olympics. It's all about them. You know, you've got to leave your ego at the door. If you really need to deal with your ego, then become a damn good pianist and give concert performances. And I do that. But when I'm playing at weddings, I'm dealing with a very different animal, and I become a slightly different animal. I create the perception of being the performer, but I'm a different type of performer. I'm an enhancer, and that's what we all are on a wedding day. We're enhancers. Yeah. You know, when the vicar or the registrar speaks at the ceremony, they're not given a lecture. It's not about their lecture or their talk, their sermon. Their sermon, their address is about the couple, and that's, you know, I've been playing the organ in church for a long time, and I've heard a lot of sermons. And every now and again, I've listened to a vicar who's enjoying himself too much because he's used to talking to 5 or 6 very well-meaning old ladies, and he's now got a church with 200 people in it, and he's just got carried away. I know that he knows the ins and outs of everything by Charles Dickens and William Shakespeare, but now is not the day to show it off. Yeah, do what's appropriate, sign the paperwork, and get off.
Love that. Okay.
Understand that you are a jigsaw piece in a very big collage. Carol Sargent at Whitterbury and I talk about meaning of weddings, what they mean. The money that you make and you earn, of course, is important, and you can talk about the business model, and I'm sure you will have people that talk about that on other podcasts. But making the assumption that you've got your price points correct, you just understand where you are in the scheme of things. It's not personal. Don't take it personally. It's about those 2 people having that special day, and be happy for them. You know, that's the other thing I was told. Be happy for them, which was why when I kissed that bride that day, it was important that I held her hand and told her she looked beautiful, because she does. There is no right and wrong about beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I have been given the privilege of being able to behold those in front of me, and I tell them that they are beautiful. I tell my guests that they look fabulous, because, as I've said many times, I've been interviewed a lot during lockdown, and I say it and I'll say it again. Most of us, 2 days later, will be back in our leggings and our raggedy clothes, eating Domino's pizza, watching The Only Way is Essex or Coronation Street or The X Factor or whatever trash television we watch, wishing that we could be those glamorous people all over again. And that's the thing that I keep in my head in real time.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. That has been such a good interview. And we must have you back on when you have completed the book, so we can talk about some of the stories that are in there, because I am sure there are some diamonds coming. So yeah, you must come back on, and we will be back again this time next week, guys. So yeah, come back and listen to some more. We've got some more interviews coming up this year. I've really thoroughly enjoyed doing my interviews with wedding vendors. So there will be more in 2021, and we'll speak to you next week. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.